Good evening. You're watching Social Network on NDTV 24/7. I'm Kajari Sen, and over the next half an hour, we're going to be talking about what's making social media at the moment and what social media is making, because IPL and social media seem to now be inextricably intertwined, with Pepsi, Vodafone, many other big brands getting onto Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus to really push for the IPL. But we're going to be talking about that a little later on the show. Right now, we're going to be talking about one of the top trends on Twitter, and that is Slapgate, or should we now call it Elbowgate. Sreesanth on Twitter, and what we saw was a rant, and he took to Twitter to talk about an incident which happened 5 years ago, and we've had a host of responses about whether he should have done it, he shouldn't have done it, and really it's a debate that we need to break down. What is the kind of responsibility that sports figures have when they take to social media, or do they have any responsibility? Because at the end of the day, they're voicing their own opinions. Joining us to discuss this here in studio, Gaurav Sethi, member of the board, Cricket Crazy Indians. Also joining us on Skype, cricket blogger Anupam Mukherjee. Thank you, both of you, for speaking with us on the social network. Now, first of all, I think the basic question when it comes to Sreesanth is, 5 years ago, in fact, at a point when Sreesanth didn't even have a Twitter handle, an incident happened. The incident happened, Gaurav, and he was penalized for it. Harbhajan Singh, was penalized for it. He was suspended for the season. Why is he bringing it up now in social media? Is he trying to make an emotional appeal to his fans, who are clearly the people who will be subscribing to his Twitter account?
For one, I feel really bad that he had to wait for 5 years if he was doing on something like this. Just imagine, for 5 years you have this, and it's blowing your head apart, and you keep thinking about it. That is, if I give Sreesanth the benefit of doubt. Now, say we do give him the benefit of doubt, so it's quite a bad place to be in, where you say you cannot say all that you have finally said. Now, let's take it that we believe in what he has said. One, I say it's very good that he does read the newspaper. That is something that we can go with. Secondly, when he did take off, it just seems like a reaction to what he read. Now, you usually have a lot of people who would be advising sports persons such as Sreesanth. Now, I don't know if there was any advice that came through this time. He just read and he reacted. There was some trigger which just went off, So you have a very crazy rant, really, which is, you really can't tell what he's saying at times.
No.
Because it's not so coherent either. But he seems wronged in it. Now, if someone is so wrong, you tend to believe that, yes, it's not just, it's very emotional.
Clearly is festering, yes.
Yeah, that he's been doing it, on it for so long. What he also did say were a lot of things that weren't contested earlier. One was that he wasn't slapped. Now, everyone thought it was a given that he was slapped. This is the last thing you really did
but
think.
You had an inquiry.
Yeah, you did. So you start thinking, what was that inquiry about? Did they hush a lot of stuff? You have to question that. There hasn't been an apology from Sreesanth. Usually on Twitter, the first thing that does happen is, if you have a rant, like you did with Suresh Raina some time back, a nephew surfaced. Sreesanth's nephew, niece, no one has surfaced so far.
Jokes about the nephew, niece have surfaced.
I've just been checking his account repeatedly. There hasn't been anyone who has tweeted contrary to that from whether it's his management, whether it is Sreesanth. So I give him the benefit of doubt there. That is, something that he just sat on, stewed, and it just burst today morning. And it seemed like a fairly innocuous article. Now, I can think of a lot of articles where they talked about Slapgate. Everyone on Twitter, the moment Sreesanth comes on Twitter, there are a lot of people I follow, including me. We say, oh, there comes Sreesanth. And, I end up sharing a lot of old cartoons of Sreesanth. I did that today as well. And, it's just that Sreesanth has this split image. At the same time, when I do feel sorry for the player and what he's been through, he also is an easy target for pretty much everyone, easy target for jokes as well.
Right, so let's now take this into, let's take what Gaurav was saying there, Anupam, and throw it over to you, which is that he seemed to have exploded. Like, clearly for 5 years, this was frustration that had built up. And there was a tweet which said, if he had written maybe a 400 considered blog post, then 400-word considered blog post, maybe the response to it would have been a different one, rather than what did come across as an incoherent rant on Twitter. Maybe not tweeting the most responsibly?
Well, as they say, you should never tweet when you are drunk, hungover, or not sure about what you want to tweet. So, especially on stuff like this, it really looked like his mind was not in the right place. He just went on and on and on, saying the same thing again and again using really bad language, in the sense bad English, bad grammar. And on the whole, I think he made a fool of himself again. Now, the thing is, nobody really cares whether Harbhajan slapped him or elbowed him or kicked him. I think the main thing is that Harbhajan did something because of which he was crying in full view of the world. And is he saying that he didn't cry, or did he have a toothache, or what was it that he was suffering from that made him cry deep inconsolably in full view of the world 5 years ago? Fact is that Harbhajan did something and he cried. It could be a slap or whatever. It's really a matter of, it doesn't concern what it was, but something happened and move on. I mean, end of story. Why do you want to like dig up old graves and let skeletons pop out of the closet?
Absolutely. Now, Gaurav, I'll throw this to you first, and then actually I'll take the same question over to Anupam, which is that image control is important for a public figure. I don't think any of us can debate that, and Sreesanth is a public figure. Do you think this kind of free-for-all access to something which, is legitimately allowed? I mean, he's allowed to say whatever he wants on Twitter, but this does create a problem on image control.
See, there will be consequences. Now, they either hush it up, but he will still end up facing a lot of music because the way the board operates is you do not say certain things. This was hushed up. Whether he is true in what he said or not will not be what they argue. They'll say, why the hell did you speak? You shouldn't have. So that is consequence one, which he would be aware of. Second, a lot of players, and I mean someone like Sreesanth,
sure.
Because of the kind of music that they face, both on social media and otherwise, because you are a caricature of a cricketer, which is quite unfortunate, and he is partly responsible for this. Yeah, but I mean, we all get what we do, right? I mean, and it comes through. So someone like Sreesanth, about his responsibilities, I think he does enjoy being in the public limelight also. I mean, you want that, yet then, I mean, you don't bargain for what comes with it. I mean, here is the same guy who, when he hit Nell for a 6, he went and did a little jig. Now, here is someone, okay, now when he gets hit, I don't know how he would take, because he does have issues with anger control as well.
Correct.
So here is a player who is reactionary, who, I mean, I guess what I have felt about someone like Sreesanth is that the board should step in, because he's also a very valuable cricketer. He is a good, I mean, you look at what he means to the team.
Right.
So someone like him who would be very useful in South Africa in a few months, you want to look at how can you, whether you have a psychologist who sits with certain players. I mean, you know that this man has a past in certain, so you deal with that. Now, of course, if it is recurring,
but you can't deal with that on a second-to-second basis, and with access to Twitter, Anupam, it would have to be on a second-to-second basis.
I'm sorry, what has to be on the second-to-second basis?
Tracking what somebody who, as Gaurav was pointing out, may have sort of emotional trigger control issues. You can't actually monitor them on a second-to-second basis. So image control in the age of social network, how do you do it?
I think, yeah, I mean, there are two ways. Either you hire a good PR agency to manage all your Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, but then that becomes impersonal. So, at some point, your online social avatar has to be pretty close to, or will end up being pretty close to who you are, because if you are in the habit of playing and updating it yourself, sometimes getting carried away, sometimes not getting carried away, but essentially it becomes, it reflects who you are in real life. And that way, Sreesanth's Twitter account definitely reflects who he is in real life, as we've seen today.
Right. Now, Gaurav and Anupam, I'm going to throw one last thing out at you before we end this chat, and that is that what Sreesanth's little monologue on Twitter seems to have done is really swept the whole Virat Kohli Gambhir thing under the carpet.
It has, but I think they'll come back to that because that is more immediate. They will address it. It again depends on how fast the media wants to let go, because this is possibly something where the media could move in and say, listen, this is inconsequential. It's a non-issue. It happened 5 years back. Do we need to address this? Which one is hotter? Which one would you stay with? I think I would have gone back to Gambhir, because it just seems as if it's far more current and, yeah, hotter.
Anupam, as long as Virat Kohli and Gautam Gambhir don't go on Twitter, do you think they're safe?
Well, they are already on Twitter, but I think both of them are quite smart. They wouldn't do anything like this. They know that it's better to keep your mouth shut rather than open a can of worms with it. So I don't think either of those two guys is ever going to refer to this incident at any public place.
Right, thank you so much. Anupam Mukherjee, cricket blogger there, talking to us about Sreesanth's tweets that seems to have raised a storm in a teacup. We're going to be talking about more cricket with Gaurav when we come back on the other side of this short break. But as we go into that short break, there is another top trend that we'd like to remind you of, and that is this year's Dada Saheb Phalke winner, Pran. And Twitter is going crazy, praising one of the best actors in Bollywood.
यारी है ईमान मेरा यार मेरी जिंदगी अरे यारी है ईमान मेरा यार मेरी जिंदगी प्यार हो बंदों से ये प्यार हो बंदों से ये सबसे बड़ी है बंदगी
इस इलाके में नए आए हो साहब वरना शेर खां को कौन नहीं जानता
लोग दीवाना है जो यूं इस पैसे पे मरता है फिर न कहना माइकल दारू पी के दंगा करता है हे अब मैं जाएगा ला 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 ला
Welcome back. You're watching The Social Network on NDTV 24/7. And there now seems to be an inextricable tie between what is happening on social media and what is happening in the real world, mostly because the social media is a very clear indicator of how brands are being followed and what is popular. And that's something that obviously is going to be cashed in on. We're now going to be talking about how IPL 6 has now become the domain for major companies and major brands to pitch in, make some revenue, push some advertising, and how are they doing it? Let's talk about that. Gaurav Sethi of Board Cricket Crazy Indians still with us. Also with us, Krishna Chandra, the sub-editor of Sportskeeda. Thank you, Krishna, for joining us. Now, Gaurav, let's go to you first. You know, ever since IPL started, there was always drawing in the consumer. That was a part of Lalit Modi's marketing strategy in IPL 1. You know, we had contests from day one, but now, with social media being engaged with to its fullest potential, you really seem to look at a much wider landscape.
You do, and I'd start with, I had this conversation with my friend Aditya, who is a contest fiend. All he does is enter contests. So Aditya has actually, one of the contests he won, he was driven around in a Ferrari at the F1 circuit in Delhi by Mr. Singhania. So that is the lure of a F1 contest, right? So how he won it was, he decided to retweet what Gautam Singhania asked to be retweeted. He was going to pick from one of the retweeters. Aditya got lucky. But again, the pattern is someone like Aditya enters at least 1 or 2 contests every day. You're talking about a guy, a bachelor, now has a lot of free time in the evenings. And he tells me that he's won at least 50 contests over the last year. This would range from being flown down to Chennai and being part of the IPL auction. There were barely 10 people other than the owners and
so this is a big
Anil
prize
Kumble.
deal.
So just imagine, we're watching it on TV, to be there, eavesdrop on what is happening. So the lure of contests is such that when you can go and stand next to MS Dhoni, not just get the ball sign, but be there at the toss. So when you're talking about something like cricket and, being part of the IPL, one is, of course, you can be in the corporate boxes and you can be picked up from your home, you can be dropped up, you can be flown. It just gets so intimate. And I feel some of the lure that works with these contests and social media is that it not just gets us closer to the marketer. I mean, if, say, 20, 30 years back, everyone was talking about what Gilby says, you got to talk to the customers if she's your wife and all. It's moved to, I think, where you make the customer your creative. So the customer is actually creating. So when you're on Twitter or Facebook, it's not just entering contest after contest, but very often, there are hashtags which you are playing with.
Right. So let me now take this over to Krishna. Krishna, what Gaurav is essentially saying there is that it makes the consumer feel more of a part of the game. Now, if you see these sort of fantasy leagues that are coming up, when you look at people building up basically the kind of game they want their players, their teams to play, it makes them feel invested in a way that they haven't been able to be before. And you think that's really what marketers and brands are looking at?
Yeah, actually, I really believe that is what they're looking for, because when you look at a contest, it is probably 5 people or 10 people that will end up winning the contest, but there'll be about hundreds of people or thousands of people who will actually take part in it. And when they interact with the brand itself, they would feel a connection, like Gaurav was saying, they would want to be part of it even more. So, for example, if there is a contest where you can go to the stadium, watch it in a place which you would not have bought a ticket for, then you actually feel thankful for that product. And that is what people are actually aiming for. And when you have competitions almost every day in the IPL, in every city there's a match, and every match there's going to be a contest. So people will want to participate in these contests, and the brand recognition or brand awareness will just increase, and that is what the companies are looking for.
Right. Now, of course, also what this allows brands to do is recognize what the areas are where consumers want to be targeted, because there's the constant feedback loop. And in something like IPL, that is something that's very important for brand managers to look at.
See, I think smart brands, what they do is they say, okay, we can actually leave the branding behind. I mean, it is very potent when you talk about mainline media, or, it could be television or the newspapers, where the logo is always lurking there. And I feel there is a certain fear for the logo. People are quite happy to participate. When you know there is a prize, you could be aware that a certain brand, which is part of this contest, is there, but it's part of your subconscious. So you actually are participating. You know there is a draw, but listen, they are not selling me something constantly.
Right.
They're actually saying, let's play. Everyone wants to be part of a game. Everyone wants to win. So with IPL, when they get down to social media, it really works, because you already are talking to an audience which wants to play. I mean, it could be if you get into something totally different. So it could be low cholesterol oil. So I don't know how the target really would want to get into gaming. But here we're talking about people I say much less than their teens, and you go into 30s, 40s. You're talking to someone who's embedded in sport. So when you get into contests, you're really targeting, it's not about just winning all those brands that you want.
And it's not about a casual fan. It's about the people who are really invested in where this is who they're pitching to.
Yeah, you want to win, basically. That's what you want to do.
Well, talking about wanting to win, Krishna, one of the most popular things that we've seen that social media is being used for is the Google Plus Hangouts, where they've got cricketers to come and talk to fans. And I think that kind of personalized social media interaction is also a huge driving point.
That is definitely true, because when you watch your favorite players on the TV, you always, in the past, when you had gone to the stadium, you would try to get an autograph from the player. But now you can actually talk with the player one-on-one, and the brand that allows you to do that you'll always be wanting to, be thankful for them. And that is what, Google Hangout does for you. So when companies do these kind of programs where they can talk with players, or they can go and meet players in the stadium, this will be very helpful for the brand, and on the long term, the brand value will also increase, because the consumers will stick with them, whatever may do.
Right. Now, the last question, because really this is what it comes down to at the end of the day, is revenues. Because, so far we've seen TV spots. IPL was sold as the big television phenomenon. Do you think now they're going to really, in the future, look at, particularly the investors in these, are going to be looking at a split between television and the internet, social media overall?
It may not happen immediately, but as the reach of social media, internet, computers reaches across, they definitely look at a skew which moves towards this. What could also happen is that they realize that certain brands will work on television. They would have whatever, could be a major chunk of their revenues which would be in mainline media, but they realize that the goodwill, the fact where they actually win people's hearts, and that is really hack, and sorry for that, but it really is that. There's a lot of goodwill which you can create through social media, which at times you cannot do with mainline media, because it's always brand. And here what you do is just talking. It's something which I personally enjoy. You're on Twitter and you are speaking to the brands. Each IPL team is alive and awake on Twitter. They have contests which are happening for what's going to happen in 5 overs, what's going to happen. So what we are looking at is possibly something which you cannot do in mainline media. So mainline media will still possibly for 5-10 years reach a lot more people till internet and computers gets to the interiors. But I think what you would do, and if someone would possibly have surely done research on this, is you are reaching higher income groups through
Right.
social
Krishna, I'm
media.
going to give you the last comment on this. Do you agree? It's a two-way model between television, print, etc., and social media the future?
I think probably social media will take over television as well, because nowadays you see even free streams being offered online for all the matches. So there is no need for the consumer per se to go to the TV and watch the match. Now he can sit on his computer, watch the match online, tweet about it, Facebook status and everything. So I think on a bigger platform, brands will want to just focus on social media in about 10 years' time, because the internet is going to be the be all and end all of that.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us. With us in studio, Gaurav Sethi, board member of the board Cricket Crazy Indians, and also on Skype, Krishna Chandra, sub-editor of Sportskeeda. Thank you both of you for speaking with us on the social network. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.